Hello, Americans. It's Friday in Bedford Falls. Figured I'd change things up a little bit this morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to FLX Morning here on Finger Lakes News Radio. Coming up on 7:06, Paul Small here with Greg Cotterill.
Good morning.
And we are not in the office today. Field trip. We're actually in the It's a Wonderful Life Museum in Bedford Falls. You know it as Seneca Falls, but this weekend it turns into Bedford Falls. It is amazing how this town transforms this one weekend a year. And I am very, very happy now to welcome to FLX Morning, Karolyn Grimes. It is wonderful to see you. How are you?
Well, I'm really good. Thank you. I'm glad to be in Bedford Falls.
And back for the 20th year as well. That is an amazing accomplishment.
It's my celebration.
Do you recognize that voice? You've probably heard it again and again. But she was a little younger then.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.
You must love coming back here every year. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it for 20 years running.
I feel like this is my family, if you really want to know.
Well, yeah, in a way it is, because you're coming into the town that Frank Capra saw, and that was the inspiration for the movie itself.
20 years ago, I met a cameraman who worked on the Oprah show. And we became very good friends. And then he called me and he said, "Carol, this is the place. This is the town." And I said, "What are you talking about?" We drove into the town that night and it had started to snow. And it was quiet, it was silent. She said, "Carolyn, this is Bedford Falls." And I was just overwhelmed. There was no doubt in my mind. Because it was a feeling. It was the place.
Zuzu Bailey's famous line to give them their go.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets her wings.
How and why Karolyn Grimes came to connect with this town is a story with several layers. Where to start?
My mom, she just had big dreams for me. When I went to interview for It's a Wonderful Life, when I went in to see Frank Capra, because he hired us personally. He hired everyone in the film personally. He said, "Well, now show me what you feel like. How would you look if you just lost your dog that you loved so very much when he died? How would you look when you saw it?"
Zuzu, my little ginger snap, how do you feel?
Fine. Not a smidge of temperature.
Not a smidge of... Hallelujah.
Hello.
I remember when Jimmy Stewart runs up the stairs and I come out my door and I say, "Daddy, Daddy." Capra got down on his knees and he looked at me eye level and he said, "I want you to show me how you would feel if your daddy left. How would you feel when you saw him come back? You'd be so happy. I want to see how you do that." My dad was manager of a Safeway store. My mom, she made all my clothes. She even made my coats. She devoted her life more or less to me. She started getting sick when I was 8, right after I did The Bishop's Wife with Cary Grant and Loretta Young. It ended up that she died when I was 14. My dad was a George Bailey. He was absolutely wonderful. My dad came to me one day and he said, "Okay, Karolyn, we have a decision to make." And I said, "Well, what is it, Daddy?" And he said, "Well, I've got enough money that I can either pay the house off or buy a new car." And so my dad had a Frazier. It was the ugliest car that ever was on the face of the earth. And I was in high school. I was so embarrassed to drive up to school and he'd let me out of that awful, ugly thing. It was hideous. So you know what I'm going to say to him? I'm going to say, "Oh, can we have a new car?"
Well, what's the matter with our car? Isn't it good enough for you?
And so I think he wanted me to say that anyway, because I think he wanted a new car. And in those days, you didn't buy things on credit; you paid cash, and at least he did. So we got a new car, and it was a '56 Buick, and it was beautiful. And one day he took it on a trip to Palm Springs with some of his friends, and it wrecked and he died in that car. So I'll never forget that, because it was my decision to get the car. So there's a lot of things that you carry with you from childhood that kind of don't go away. My dad didn't leave a will, so the court decided to send me to live with my mean aunt and uncle in Missouri. And that's how it all ended from Hollywood. My dad's death was extremely traumatic. I had totally lost my whole life. I had to start over in a town that had 900 people in it. So it was like a whole different world that I'd been shipped to. I ended up with my father's brother and his wife, and she was a very mean person. And the whole town knew. So everybody just kind of rallied around me. It took about a year for me to realize that I never wanted to go back to Hollywood again, because these were real people and they cared. They really cared, and they made a big difference in my life. It's not like that in Hollywood. It's people are shallow, and it's kind of was dog eat dog. And you have to be a child in the movie industry to really see that. I think it was divine order that I'm supposed to be involved in all this because my 18-year-old son took his own life. And he was a senior, and he was getting ready to graduate, and he just was scared of life, I think. In reflection, I could have done a better job, and will always feel that way. Things could have been done differently, but I have to live with the fact that they weren't done differently, and I just feel like that's another place that I have to offer help or advice or whatever needs to be. You can survive from a family member taking their own lives. It's with you forever, but there are ways that you can cope with it. And one of the ways is by helping others. And that's one of the big things that I've tried to do over the years is to help others who are going through the same situation. And people write to me all the time and tell me their situations when a family member or someone they love takes their own life. Then they need to have somebody to talk to. And so we incorporate that in the museum because it's a huge situation now. It's growing every year, and especially for young people. And we need to try to make a difference in that regard and help these kids and anybody that's on the bridge, because there's a